Uh, Good morning or good afternoon to everyone. Thank you very much for taking the time to attend the session. As you might know, the session is about investment funds, its prospects in the Astana International Financial Center. And just to set the tone and provide some context, we put together a few slides, just to preempt the discussion. Let me start with them, and then I'll introduce our distinguished panel of speakers. So the investment funds industry overall has seen a rapid development and growth over the past 10 years. If you look at the numbers on your graph, you can see that the open-ended funds globally has increased both in terms of asset under management, AUM, and in terms of number of funds quite significantly. And this has a lot to do with the conducive, or let's say favorable market environment we have seen, but overall the dynamic is very positive and very self-evident. So if we speak about the major hubs or major fund domiciles, those jurisdictions probably are very much familiar to people who work in funds industry. This is a breakdown based on the survey conducted across fund managers, across hedge fund managers. As you can see, there are about a dozen of established fund jurisdictions across the world. And obviously, these are US and Delaware, Cayman Islands, in Europe it's Luxembourg and Netherlands, and in Asia it's Singapore, Hong Kong. And the question is, the key question is whether you can see that the Kazakhstan or anywhere near Kazakhstan is not on the map yet, and there is room to grow as
Kazakhstan is already on the map.
Okay.
It is on the map.
And so the key question is whether Kazakhstan or Astana International Financial Center in particular will be on this map in 5 or 10 years time horizon. That's the question we want to address during this panel. So just to provide some further numbers, these are the AUM and number of funds in the AIFC. Obviously, they're quite modest in global context, but we can see that the dynamics is very positive. The number of funds has grown from 6 in 2021 to 27 this year. And I guess we have a quite solid and impressive pipeline of investment funds. So this is, I guess, it from my side. Let me then switch to introducing our panel of speakers who will be discussing on this. So let me first introduce our distinguished guest from Switzerland, Dr. Alexander Lindemann. He's the founder of Zurich-based law firm specializing on capital markets, securities markets, funds, securitization. Prior to founding the firm, Mr. Lindemann used to work for PwC, a number of, let's say, top-tier law firms in Switzerland. He has experience of advising clients across many jurisdictions, including Luxembourg, Switzerland, Cayman Islands, Malta. Vast experience. We have Yerkegali Edimbayev, the representative from Astana Financial Services Authority, a regulator of AIFC. That's the guy who authorizes funds in the AIFC, so he has a lot to share, I guess. Prior to joining AFSA, Mr. Edimbayev used to work in banking, insurance, and asset management industries. He's got a wide and rich experience. Will Aston is the managing partner of Ozara Services. Ozara Services is one of the first ancillary service providers in the AIFC, I guess, like, or has been operating since inception of the center and has been a cornerstone partner of the financial center overall, providing necessary support services. Mr. Aston has also consulted a lot potential fund managers who are like interested in setting up funds, so has a lot to share about his experience of operating so far. Pavel Koktushev, the guy who many of you probably know, is the co-founder and the managing partner of MOST. It's a startup incubator, the leading, or like the largest startup incubator in the country. Pavel has also experience of setting up a fund in the AIFC, a venture capital fund in the AIFC, has hands-on experience of doing that, and will share that experience with us today. And last but not least is Alexander Diakovsky, who is the managing director of ITS, which was just launched about an hour ago. It's a multi-trading facility which provides access to global securities market to both retail and institutional investors. Alexander has great experience in infrastructure, financial infrastructure, and particularly in setting up exchange-traded funds. So this is the area he has huge experience and can share his views on this, on development of this particular segment in terms of funds industry. So with that, I think I'll pass the floor to Mr. Lindemann, just maybe with a question of what's the global landscape for setting up funds look like today? What are the recent trends, tendencies? What domiciles are predominantly used by clients? And do you see like Kazakhstan, or in particular Astana International Financial, as a possible hub for setting up, or domiciling, managing funds? Thank you.
Thank you, first of all, Timilan. It's a fantastic pleasure to be here today. I want to tell a story how I came here. Actually, Timilan had it like a European tour and was passing by in Switzerland, and he, I think out of a very few limited number of law firms, he came to our law firm and invited me, so I had no chance to say no. And because, I mean, Kazakhstan was definitely on my list. We have a specialization on Central Asia in our law firm. So, I mean, what can I contribute here to this panel? I'm specialized on investment funds, and I mean, typically when clients come to me and want to set up an investment fund, I ask them, I mean, what's the asset class, right? What type of asset class? What's the amount? What's the asset under management? Where are the assets located? Where are your investors? Also very important, of course, when you structure an investment fund is, of course, I mean, what do your investors look like? What do they expect? Is it like a retail investor? For example, in Europe, we have these UCITS funds. It's super highly regulated. We have a new fund type also in Europe, that is the alternative investment fund. There we have also the option that you basically set up a fund without that you have to actually ask the regulator. It's, I mean, you can just notify the regulator of this fund. And of course, there are private wealth funds. These are basically pools that should be as little regulated as possible, right? So having said that, I mean, there's no one size fits all. And so for the choice of jurisdiction, that comes also, of course, a lot with the question, what type of fund actually do you need for your specific project? That is, I think, what I wanted to say in the first place. So, and here, I think definitely, I mean, already when Kazakhstan and AIFC is on the map already. I mean, you see there's a huge white spot. I mean, the fund locations around the world, and there's a huge white spot in Central Asia, and I think so there's really a gap that AIFC is filling, and we already heard by my colleague there in the last row about the different funds that you have. So I think that there's a marvelous selection of these funds in your country that can be utilized. And so what other trends, maybe if I may tell a few things out of our practice. I mean, we see that the numbers are really growing. I mean, you've showed it, Milan, that the numbers are really tremendously growing, and I think AIFC has just to open the door to get a chunk of it. And I think you're doing this nicely. I talked, even today already, I talked to, I think, 5 members of your financial regulatory authority. So these people are really well versed. They know what they're doing. They are approachable. I can make meetings with them at any time, which is all I need when I set up a fund for a client. I need accessible authorities, and they also were able to tell me the times. It's like two months typically to set up an investment fund manager. It's 2 weeks to launch a fund. I mean, these are awesome times, and when you compare it with other regulators, that's exactly what I expect as a fund lawyer and fund tax lawyer. That's what I need. Having said that, yes, I mean, general trends also was the question. Yes, we see the growing trend of regulation, right? I mean, the regulation is growing, which is on the one hand, I think, good, because it provides certainty, legal certainty. On the other hand, of course, yes, it inhibits a little bit the time to market, which is, I mean, super important for our clients. I mean, you all want to launch your fund ASAP and not in half a year. And so, I mean, here we see definitely the trends. Of course, we have to tackle the issues of sanctions. Investor protection is an important trend. And of course, I mean, we have a lot of anti-money laundering compliance actually is also quite an important trend. But I think we have seen the peak here. I think this is already a trend that is fortunately going down a little bit. So that's just I don't know what shall do I have 2 more minutes or I think another very important trend, and I think that's maybe something that you should also think about as a fund center, is the specialization. I mean, we see that the fund centers that are really growing, like Luxembourg, Cayman, Singapore, they all have a specialization, right? And they're somehow detached from the mainland, and I think, and they are specialized. Then they're specialized. So, and I think that's something actually that you can also with AIFC has. I mean, is in common law and can really focus on these financial topics rather than, because, I mean, when you look at like regulators like the German BaFin or, I don't know, like the SEC in the US, they have so many concerns all the time that this can really inhibit good fund structuring. So I think that is something that you will be better at. Some final thing I think I wanted to mention. I wanted to mention that one of my absolutely favorite clients is in the room. Oksana is smiling. We have something maybe you've not heard. Something that's very important when we structure funds. A lot of the times we do not always structure it as a fund. And for example, yeah, for the iClub, I think we found a very good way to invest in venture capital. On the one hand, of course, the iClub has already 66 members here in Kazakhstan, which is fantastic. These are all successful entrepreneurs, a network, and you're investing into, I mean, the most successful venture capital around the globe. And I'm very proud to, support you with this. And here we found a way, actually, yes, with a holding structure. And yeah, the growing numbers show the success, and I think you can, Oksana and her colleagues are sitting here in the first row. If you're interested in joining the iClub, I think there's still an option. So.
Thank you, Dr. Lindemann, for your valuable comments. I guess building on Mr. Lindemann's comments about regulatory developments, I'd like to switch to Jirke. Could you maybe provide a brief overview of the general regulatory framework for funds, for investment funds, collective investment schemes? And you've also introduced some amendments in the collective investment scheme regulations. So if you could share what those amendments are aimed at, what are they designed to improve, and also if you could share your thoughts on on the pipeline you see. Thank you.
Thank you, Timerlan. AFSA started from 2018. I've been gaining supervisory practice, and most of you know that the fund application process was on the case-by-case approach. So finally we gained this experience, this knowledge, and I'm happy to announce during Astana Finance Days that starting from 1st of June, we implemented several enhancements to the CIS regime. First of all, we implemented into the CIS framework the necessary amendments to AIFC legislation in regards to the GPLP structures. We made amendments on the PCCs, protected cell companies. And now I'm happy to announce that umbrella funds, master feeder funds and funds or fund structures are now available in the AIFC. Okay, there's a minor amendments for the rates regime. You might be happy of that up to 10% of NAV of a fund can be invested into property under development. We carefully benchmarked this opportunity throughout the key jurisdictions. There's different, and we prefer to be pretty conservative. And we will see again what will be the practice, and later on we can build up more on that. What else? Maybe it's because in our recent strategy we are trying to be more focused on the results, on the industry, and we erased all the provisions in regards to self-managed funds from our CIS framework, because we see that there are a lot of conflict of interest to handle. There's no demand for such products, and we prefer to be focused on the more successful fund structures. Apart from that, I think everybody will be happy, and the relevant documents already published on our website. So you might already seen the guidance for fund managers on the establishment of CIS, and very important thing as well that we already published the templates for non-exempt and exempt funds constitution and offering materials. So we are building this knowledge and compliance culture in the industry. We are trying to do that. And again, like happy Astana Finance days. I'm ready to announce that in near future we are ready, and I think the fund industry is ready to allow establishment of exempt funds with a small number of professional investors without AFSA written consent. So I'm like authorized to make such announcement. So I think you will be more than happy to hear that. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Irkegali. Well, I think these are very positive news for the industry, especially. Like there was some long anticipated breakthrough in terms of being able to set up a fund in the form of an LP, limited partnership. That's the form typically used across the world to set up hedge funds, private equity, or general alternative funds. And no need to gain AFSA approval is also, I guess, like quite a breakthrough for the whole industry. So thank you very much for your hard work. Will, switching to you, like you've been in the AIFC from day one, right? And you've seen the market, the funds market evolve over time. You've consulted provided advice to many current fund managers and their investors. And could you just, shed some light in terms of the structure of those funds, the types? Is there any preference for any particular type fund? And generally, how strong is your, let's say, pipeline from the perspective of investor demand or investment and investment supply?
Well, I think that the short answer is that actually the pipeline is remarkably robust given how young the centre is. But I think there's some important wider characteristics around, in particular, investor demand. Termalan put up the picture that had the spread of hedge funds with the two very large blobs of a US and Cayman. The broader picture for funds into Kazakhstan is the inexorable shift from the Western jurisdictions to a much more Asia-centric view of the world. So if we look at where the economy may be by 2050, 60% of the growth will be Asian countries. Over half of the economy will be Asia. So the question from a investor demand within that shift to Asia is, how is that shift going to work with respect to Kazakhstan, Central Asia, and the AIFC? So within that context, what are the reasons in terms of demand as to why, with that shift to Asia, I should be here in the AIFC and I should be here in Kazakhstan? And I think there's a couple of things that I think are, in terms of that shift, really, really important as to why this would be jurisdiction that you would think about and actively pursue. I think the first is demographics. Many Asian countries are a very, very young population. Clearly that young population will drive greater people of working age, which will drive greater economy. But there are particular accelerators in terms of that demographic dividend that Kazakhstan has in considerable measure that are not there in the comparative jurisdictions. So if you think about the key one that, to my mind, is the most important accelerator in terms of the demographic dividend for Kazakhstan and the region, is the existing high levels of education. So how does that translate into being able to execute it? Well, let me give you a basic farming agriculture example. I'm a cotton producer in Shymkent. I have a very robust, quite old, originally from Belarus machinery. It does a job. If something breaks down, all the diagnostic tools I need is a hammer. Right? For me to grow and for me to be able to extend that, I need the latest John Deere cotton picking machine. Now, that's fine until it breaks down, and it will break down. So all the things in terms of the service industry, all the things in terms of the engineers and the technical support for that to be realized, that's critically dependent upon being able to have the workforce with the education in order to do. In terms of that level of education, Kazakhstan is a position that it can, day one, apply that demographic dividend, whereas comparatively, in relation to the other jurisdictions you may consider, that doesn't apply. So yes, it has the same advantages as ours, but the level of education, particularly in terms of technical fields, actually means that that is more deployable more quickly, which means that you again get the accelerator. So in terms of where you are going to, you see across Asia, you're going to see different rates at which things occur. And actually in terms of early adoption and growth within that shift, Kazakhstan is very well placed, particularly in terms of the demographic dividend. The other example I would draw out where, again, there's an accelerator from a Kazakhstan perspective is around infrastructure demand. The same trend globally, particularly with young populations, there will continue to be urbanization. Urbanization drives need for public infrastructure. Public infrastructure drives investment opportunity. The additional thing to know in terms of infrastructure development, I think, is twofold with respect to Kazakhstan. One is that Kazakhstan's geographic location, not just from a time zone point of view, but in terms of logistics and transport, the infrastructure opportunities for investment within Kazakhstan is not merely driven by the ongoing shift to urbanization and what that does, but actually also it's multiplied by the very real, very active infrastructure investments and opportunities that are driven by Kazakhstan's geography. And it's also blessed with the resources that, in terms of the typical government and regional financing, then again, Kazakhstan is well placed. So in terms of the things that would drive infrastructure, where are you going to look to be able to put your dollars that ultimately you want in terms of infrastructure development, which will progress and increase across Asia? Where are the places where that is going to occur earlier in terms of investment demand? Then Kazakhstan and through the AIFC and in collaboration with the regions, then this is from an investor demand perspective, compared with the rest of the Asia-centric shift, the fundamentals are attractive for earlier movement here than potentially elsewhere across Asia. Moving to the question of the pipeline capability, Jörg talked about some of the different legal structures and what's now available. in terms of looking at the pipeline capability, how do you get effectively investor connected with investment? Then I think it's informative to look at, well, what's been achieved to date and what's actually worked, and some of the features of that. Now, most of the asset managers and the fund managers and the funds that have been established it is single domestic fund manager with single domestic fund. So that is offered by way of private placement. Typically, the investors are known. Typically, the domestic fund manager is domestic not just to AIFC, but actually domestic to Kazakhstan or the region. So the consequence of that is that effectively you have the advantage in the immediate term of from investor to fund manager and key individuals within the fund, there is typically an existing trusted relationship. The downside of that in terms of the pipeline capacity is that in terms of promotion and distribution, more broadly, then that is inherently constrained in what is achieved. Now, this is changing as we get more asset managers established here who are bringing with them that more global international network. And similarly, when we get to more of the situation where asset managers are actually managing multiple funds. I think the other characteristic that is also important to recognize in looking at what the pipeline capability is actually, well, what's the distribution of assets under management across those funds that have been established. And the numbers overall are, in comparison with the other international jurisdictions, are stunningly good. The reality is that it's a relatively small number of funds and fund managers that are accountable for the vast proportion of the assets. So it's still a fairly concentrated pipeline and execution capability. The other characteristic that is not to do with, I think, specifically fund type is that I would categorize almost all of the funds as being some form of alternative investment. And so, are you going to see growth in, is the growth of funds within AIFC and supporting the investment across the region, is that going to have a similar profile to the existing more traditional jurisdictions? The answer to that is clearly no. I think the sensible expectation is that actually it will build on both the strengths of what has worked already within the AIFC, together with the investment opportunities that are particularly prevalent within Kazakhstan and across the region. So I think you will see extraordinarily good opportunities, but actually within fairly specific and narrow fields. So you won't see a large mutual fund that it invests in public equities. Is that happening soon? No. So the thing to look at within that are the particular things where is how's that going to work, and where's the investment supply. And in looking at that, I think it's really, really important to recognize that although the AIFC is, from a international financial center, it's like the fourth generation. First there was DIFC, then there was QFC, then there was the ADGM, and each one learnt from the other. But if you actually give it, well, what's really happening in those, then by comparison, ADGM is almost a walled-off financial center, where it is the wealth of the Emirate of Abu Dhabi being managed from Abu Dhabi globally. It's almost the inverse to the AFC, and where with the AFC, the investment opportunity that you're looking for is you are looking to be able to both get the longer-term benefits that arise from the privileges and permissions that there are within the AFC. But Kazakhstan, like all countries in Asia, almost without exception, there are the things that are within the Kazakh Civil Code that actually, from an investment point of view, are similarly important to you. If in the first 5 years, no customs, no VAT, these things in terms of my investment and different tax treatments. So actually, in the way in which the fund structures and vehicles practically need to work within the AFC is actually about getting both the potentially longer-term benefits that there may be from a pure investor perspective, alongside the potentially shorter and medium-term investments there may be in relation to the specific project. And I think nowhere does this come into more than the within Kazakhstan, particularly the shift in terms of regional development, things within the special economic zones.
Well, sorry, I'm just cautious of time. Like, if you just could, provide some of your concluding remarks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the only other thing that I would say in terms of the investment supply that I think is particular for Kazakhstan is SME financing, where clearly there is the demand and for SME financing. And I think the unique thing in terms of broader pipeline capability, Alpa spoke to this in terms of the gap that there is. With GoCrowd, there is infrastructure that can actually allow you to start to execute on that, and that again is something that is particularly unique to the Kazakh jurisdiction.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. I guess was quite informative and helpful for the audience. So Will, you said that a typical profile is in the AIFC in terms of funds is one manager or one fund manager managing one fund, and I guess Pasha, this is an example of your case. You're a fund manager managing one fund, although I know you're setting up a second one. It's in the process. So you had practical experience of setting up a fund in the AIFC. So could you just share that experience? How bad, how good was that? What high level, regulatory obstacles or problems have you encountered along the way?
I'll be cautious of your time. Right after Yerki Gali's announcement, everything is great. So let's finish with that. So we are most holding, and it's a holding structure here at AIFC, but it's this holding mainly driven by the investment vehicle that we have within our ecosystem. So we are early investor to the most promising startups, technology companies, future unicorns from the Central Asia, and we first of the kind classical institutional investor here. So one of the few examples of our brilliant portfolio companies, including like Cerebra, stroke analysis AI platform. We do have Clockster, the high growth potential companies in Southeast Asian market. For now, GoChat, like 2 million active users, AI chat instrument for the business, and the great example of generative AI, Quaka, and so on and so forth. So we do invest in some other than Kazakh Central Asian startups, including like Namba from Kyrgyzstan and Dolon from Kyrgyzstan. So yeah, so the whole idea was just to support this kind of organization from very beginning, and it's happened that we team and company from Kazakhstan. So and the dates of creation of AIFC, it's overlapped with the creation of most ecosystem. So we are happy to be part of that journey. Of course, being the pioneer venture fund, like close-ended venture fund, it's hard. I mean, in terms of procedures and all that things. Of course, I'm sure that some our international folks might have the different experience because they set up different structures all over the world. So the AIFC is our first and only jurisdiction so far, and we're happy to be part of it. I want to refer to Mr. Lindemann's comments about like specialization. Of course, from the very beginning, I also witnessed the creation of AIFC and observed that as a classical financial center. But today we have a lot of competition and a lot of, I mean, same kind of services all over the world. So the same, I was also happy to be part of the founding team of Astana Hub. It's International IT Technoparks, just the next door to AIFC. And yeah, I truly understand the whole situation behind the curtains. So it's a tough job for the whole AFSA team, for all AIFC team, and truly admire their work. But AIFC achieved a lot of things so far, and I believe that what we can observe, and I really want to appeal to our government, I mean, just to continue to invest and to reinforce AIFC and AIFC team and AIFC platform, because it's just beginning of the of that ecosystem, of that financial center. So it doesn't mean that okay, it's everything. That so many people here, so it means everything is great and we don't need additional resources. So we do need additional resources for AFSA team just to do the not to be a bottleneck for the raising demand from the different stakeholders, because now we see that that the demand from different parts of the world may brings different products to financial centers. So protected cell companies. We faced that question and some obstacles with that form almost a year ago. So and then the only 2 or 3 companies was around just to raise this question, just to go to the regulator and start discussing that. Of course, at that time it was like I mean wrong thinking that it's not high demand for these kind of products because the only 2 companies around, or maybe it's not so important. I believe the great opportunity for AIFC is just to continuously development and continuously like introducing the new forms, and to be not the very classical financial center. again, so many competition in the market. So most of our startups structured at Delaware. So and we work as a fund manager from AIFC, and we we collecting the funds from predominantly the locals. I mean, from Kazakh money, Kazakh high net worth individuals, and of course they prefer to keep money here, but because not only because there is a great service here, there is no options to take this money out of here, so out of Kazakhstan. So it's two things, and I really like the development, but I'm sure we need just to speed up some processes, and then of course it's not only AIFC's job. I mean, it's a job for the community to command, to just provide, and a professional community to comment actively the consultations papers. They just comment officially some working groups and so on and so forth. So I observed a lot of activities from the community abroad, and not so much active involvement of community, investors community here. So it's not the only job for AFSA just to develop all that stuff. So it's our collective goal just to develop our AIFC ecosystem.
Thank you, Pasha. Well, your constructive criticism is duly noted and will be escalated to the leadership of the AIFC. So, Alexander, like the story of the AIFC in terms of as a funds domicile has been more about alternative funds, real estate, hedge fund, PE. You come from a different space, and you just had a big event launching the ITS, which provides access to single name stocks to more than 1,500 single names stocks. But apart from that, I assume you have plans to develop some index-based vehicles, and like ETF, exchange traded fund, is one of them. Could you just maybe share your vision, your prospects?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Tamerlan, if you don't mind, I would like to speed up the process and speak Russian. Is that okay?
Sure, yeah.
Colleagues, I will just take 3 minutes of your time. We'll speak very quickly. I will speak in 3 minutes what we do about developing the fund industry for retailers. My colleagues talked more about professional investors, and we are a platform that just an hour ago started trades, MTF trades here in AIFC, and we are focused on retail. And we know that AIFC has all the opportunities to do ETF hub very strong, not only for Kazakhstan, but in general for Central Asia. And there are prerequisites for this that we can see. Demography, that's what my colleagues mentioned. 30% of Kazakhstan population are young people, and this is the target group that is moving the global markets and ETF markets. These are new investors who have new preferences, new views how to invest. The second thing is digitalization and digital banking. It's available all over in Kazakhstan. I've recently been to Mangistan, the most remote areas in Kazakhstan, and you don't have to worry about cash. You can pay by these digital instruments. And the last thing that is also important, this is the empty niche for this market. We can see ETF successfully developing not only in the US, it's very popular everywhere from Australia, South Korea to European countries, Portugal, Italy. And of course, Central Asia is standing out that this industry is not developed yet, but nothing withholds us in terms of infrastructure, and we have international liquidity here, and of course regulation. Nothing prevents us from doing this together with the market to make the CTF market very popular. I cannot move the screen. Okay, now I can. What we should do about it together. First of all, we should give the market some democratic instruments. What it means, in our opinion, these are the instruments that will take only $5–10 to enter, and that will give a chance to do very low total expense ratio at the world level, just maybe 1/1000 of a percentage point, and very liquid. We are specialists on liquidity, and without liquidity, that won't take off. 30% of the global market of equities, this is the ETF market. And we plan to create not just an instrument, but really make it very liquid. And the last factor, of course, that's the regulatory environment. We understand, like as anywhere in the world, AIFC should have dozens of funds coming and going every year. This is the competition that will enable market to develop and to implement different ideas. A year ago, I came to Kazakhstan, and I'm always, well, been scared about like cold winter and hot summer. Well, the winter wasn't that cold, and actually, I feel very comfortable here with my family. Also, the people tried to scare me that the fund will be registered for a year. It will take a year, but actually this is wrong. And I see that regulatory environment enables to quickly register new funds, including non-exempt funds that we are interested in. What we do as an infrastructure, what we are going to do. The two indices that I'm going to show you, the ETF market, this is an index market. More than 80% are index funds in the market of the world. And it's actually interesting to see that only 5 companies in the world account for 90% of this market. These are the companies that first believed in the market, came in the market and started developing this industry and this instrument, and now they reap the fruits. And I urge the companies interested in developing here, come to ETS to implement your ideas, or come to ETS to implement the ideas that I'm going to mention. These are the things we are working on. These are the 2 indices. First index is called ITS World. It represents a basket of securities. That means averaging investment opportunities for Kazakhstan investors. These are the securities from the US, from Asia, Europe. And what is important for us, these are the securities from Kazakhstan. It's very important for us so that Kazakhstan retail investors could invest into the fund and would understand that here in this fund they have also a share of those companies that they know very well. So you can see that at the test, the index was showing very well results, very good results on performance. And our second index, that is called ITS Sharia, we are developing it together with one of the AIFC residents, Sahi Invest. This fund, this index is focused for Muslim investors for whom it's important to which companies they invest, whether these companies meet the Sharia requirements. And we do the constant screening with our partners, highly qualified, so that only Sharia requirements meeting companies would enter this index. I think that would be the first retail instrument in Islamic financing here in the market, and I'm sure that this is one of the steps to build at the regulatory AIFC basis to build a ETF hub, not only for AIFC in Kazakhstan, but for Central Asia. Thank you. Thank you, Alexander.
So let's give a round of applause for our speakers and wrap up the session. Thank you. Thank you. I think the next session is just set to begin also. Thank you.